Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. This is Dr. Hawthorn here, and today we are coming back to practice UV mapping. Last time you have already learned how to UV map this eraser, and then today we will go to have a practice on a more complex mesh, which is the calculator next to it. I remember I gave you this exercise of trying to copy what I did for the eraser and give you the opportunity to try yourself how to map on this calculator. Have you tried it? And today we will be talking about how exactly I will do this. Maybe you will find an easier way, but this is how I'm going to this mesh and try to mimic the reality. If you take a look at the file that I gave you, I have prepared this image, which is more or less the same as the buttons on the calculator you can find in reality. And I prepared this because it is a very simple image, so I prepared this in Illustrator. I did not invest any time on searching on Google and trying to find something similar. Instead, I created this in Adobe Illustrator, and then I save it as a PNG file. Now I can come to Blender. On the Material tab, then I can create a new material. Of course, when I created a new material, I have only one material for the calculator, and I have the name as material 002. And so I'm going to rename it as calculator. When I rename this as calculator, then I can go to base color. I'm not going to give any base color to it, but as you can see, if I change it to a yellowish green, then the entire mesh, because I have only one material, so the entire mesh is now changed to yellowish color. And it is not very shiny nor very rough. It is not metallic, more or less like a plastic look. And now I want to change it to image texture. And if you have been using Blender more and more, and you remember exactly that you want to change to image texture, this is how you can save some time. You don't have to search the whole list and look for image texture. And especially now, for example, I don't have my glasses with me, and probably I don't remember very well where the thing is, and I cannot read the screen very well. I'll just turn on this list. I open this list and type on keyboard I, and then it will automatically change to image texture. And now when I change to image texture, as you can see, it turns purplish. And this purple, I want you to remember this. And this is something you often will encounter in Blender. This purple is one of a kind. When you see this, normally people do not put this purple on purpose in the scene unless you are creating a cyberpunk style scene or something really pinkish. You want to create a Barbie style room, then you will probably use this color. But if not, for example, like in this scenario that we have only 3 objects here, and definitely I don't want a pinkish calculator. This is because when you are trying to have an image in the scene here, for example, the calculator, but I have not put it yet, right? In this case, I don't exactly have the image in the scene. Or, for example, if you have put in this eraser image mapping onto this eraser skin, and then I send it to another computer, and when I open this very file in another computer, I will probably see the skin in purple as well. That is because you are sending only the Blender file to the other person without embedding the image, or what you can do 2 ways. One is to also send the UV mapped material alongside with the Blender file. So you will send not only the Blender file, but you will also send the eraser skin PNG or JPEG. And this is how you can make sure that another person taking over your project can open your project with no problem. But there is another way that I want to show you is going to File, and then we'll have external file, external data. And on the first option, we have the automatically pack resources. It is off now, so definitely if I'm sending this file to your computer and you open it, not only you will see a purple calculator, you will also see a purple eraser. But if I have this on, it means that I'm packing one file, and in this case, I'm packing 3 files. I don't know why. Probably I have some other images left behind in this But definitely, I have packed the eraser skin PNG into this Blender file. If I am sending this Blender file to your computer, I don't have to send the PNG alongside with the Blender file. I only have to send the Blender file, and then you will open it. You will see only one purple calculator, but the eraser is perfectly mapped. In this case, I would recommend you, if you are not only texturing your scene with base color, solid color, or emission, or even glass BSDF, if you are mapping anything at all, for example, downloading any mesh from online libraries, or you are taking over any files from your friends or colleagues, make sure they have this on, and make sure you have this on, just to save you some time in the future. Definitely, if you are packing so many images into your Blender file, definitely that your Blender file is going to be bigger and bigger. And this is what you have to be aware of. If you want to save your time, just pack everything into your Blender file. The Blender file can be huge. However, if you have a set of data here in your local computer and your friend also has another set of data in their local computer, you can deselect this option. You can choose not to pack any resources. So you're only sending the white file with the data that I'm mapping this very image, but then your friend from the other side, he has to or she has to just do the linkage. In this case, I will keep this on because I don't have a big file. And now I can open, last time, I can open from download the calculator mapping. So I did that before in another file to map this calculator, so you can see that once I do this, it looks more or less perfect. But I don't want that. What I can do is now going to create another material, or I use the white material here and go to the edit mode, select everything. First, I would just mess up because of the tutorial purpose. I will mess up the entire mapping. So I will do cube projection, something like that. So you see, from the top view, of course, I'm mapping the image onto the computer, but everything is off. It is this slightly rotated along the z-axis, if you can say it. This is because if I take a look at the rotation here, I did not reset the rotation. It is rotated in 20 degrees on the z-axis. And that's why when I map it, the PNG file directly, that's okay because I'm going to do it from scratch. And now what I need to do, I want to reset it. I want to use the material, the default material, applying to the entire mesh. What I can do is selecting everything, all the faces here from the calculator, and assign this material. It's turning back to white. I hope you will follow along and just do like this. Then we can do it step by step. Imagine it is a new file. It is a new calculator. What I can do is to go to top view, and then I can select the buttons, because if you take a look at the image here, what is exactly from the top of the graphic is all these buttons on the calculator, right? I'm selecting all the faces here with shift and also face select. I'm selecting everything here. If you made a mistake just like I did, just do Command Z or Control Z to undo it. Now I have deselected everything. What I can do is to select the calculator image texture, assign it. When I assign it, and you can see again it is tilted. What I'm doing now is to turn on the preset of UV editing, and now I'm seeing again the eraser material. If I'm selecting, well, I have to look for my calculator. My calculator is here, back to the top view. I'm selecting all these faces, and all these faces are here already. However, I'm looking at the eraser skin, which is not desirable. I want to look at the calculator.png. Now, I'm on the calculator.png. You can see that, of course, the mapping is off. What I can do, and if you can remember what we did last time, you will do project from view when you are on the top of the graphic. Let's try it. I did the project from view, and it is not rotated anymore. It is exactly aligned. Everything is aligned except that the buttons are very small. So I'm going to scale it up. Now remember, if you do scaling, when your mouse is hover on top of the calculator, of course you are scaling these faces that you have selected on the left hand side. But if your mouse cursor is above the right hand side panel and you do scaling, be very careful because you are scaling the buttons. So in this case, in Blender, where your mouse is determined where your action is taking. So in this case, make sure your mouse cursor is on the left-hand side and you do scaling. When you do scaling, and you just have to move it down here. If the image you have prepared is perfectly matching the ratio of the mesh, is perfectly matching the mesh that you have created, congratulations, there is not much for you to do. But in this case, for example, I created the image differently at a different time as the mesh. It is slightly off. What I can do here is to do it like row by row. For example, I select faces like this. This is one row. And if I zoom in here, I'll just do fine adjustment to the mapping. In this case, it's a little bit off because, for example, this face, I want to move it a little bit to the left and apparently it's tilted. Probably when I do the project from view, I did not do it really from the top. Maybe I have rotated it slightly and that's why it is a bit tilted. What we can do here is to do project from view again, selecting these 4 buttons. Make sure you are on top of the graphic and do the project from view again. And now I can move them down and then I can scale them up. And to see it face by face, for example, this one, putting it down a bit and just mapping it more or less here. And it still look a little bit tilted. That's probably because my calculator is really not in 0 degree. I rotated it a little bit before. It is not in 0 degree and that's why it is a bit tilted. But anyway, I'll just do whatever I can here, just to make sure that I can have the buttons more or less mapped. And this one, grabbing, or I can scale down it a little bit just to squeeze everything in. And then this button is actually the plus button, which is bigger. I forgot to UV mapping on the gap here, so I'm going to do it once again. I'm selecting the 3 faces at the same time, top view, going to UV project from view. And now this is here, and I can move by grabbing it. Above the plus button, I use S to scale it up. Oh, I forgot to select the middle button. Everything's starting again. Select everything with O and then grab to scale it up. Here, I have encountered some problem because I did the UV unwrapping in a different time, so I have to just select everything and put them in place again. I have all these 3 faces put here, supposedly show up here, but I haven't do the assigning material, so I have to select this middle face and then go to the panel here, select the calculator material, assign it. If you look from the top view, you see the plus button is well mapped, and then I can move on to the second row, this row, and from here more or less it's in place. So I'm going to let it go, and then the row above is slightly too tall, so I'm going to squeeze them by using scaling and squeeze them from the top, grabbing them and just to put them in place. They're in place more or less, and then the upper row, just have to grab them down a bit or maybe scaling them down a bit. And then the top, less tall, and just put them down a bit. And then last, these 2. It's not much problem. I just have to adjust the location of the mapping. And now I have all the buttons basically mapped if I'm looking at of course, if I'm looking at the calculator from the top. So what I can do here is to finish the mapping of the side of the button. What I can do is going to the side view 3, because I want to look at the side. I don't want to select any face that is here. So for example, if I'm going to the front view with 1 to the front orthographic, if I'm selecting the faces here, it seems that I'm selecting the side of the buttons, but I'm also selecting what is at the back, and I don't want that. I only want to select the side of the button. And in this case, I can select the side of the buttons here from the side view, of course. But you can see that I'm only selecting the side that I can see from the right orthographic. What is hidden behind the camera, I cannot select because I cannot see them. In this case, what I can do is to go to the material preview. I can still see the material, but I can also turn on the X-ray. As you can see, if I turn on the X-ray here, and from the side view, I can drag and drop these buttons. You see, I have some black dots in the center of the face, and this is indicating if this is a face or not. If this is not filled by a face, you will not see a black dot here. When I see the black dot, it means that I'm seeing the face. And if I do this box selection, I'm selecting all the faces, meaning all the faces of the side of the buttons. And now I can create another texture, which is a new texture that is darker gray. And if I assign it, I'm going to show you in this case, like in the render preview, so you can see it even better. For now, it's white color, but I can assign this material to the side of the buttons. Once I assign them, they are turned. Now, imagine if you want to map also the rest of the calculator, what can you do? What you can do is to select, for example, the white color just to create another gray, another shade of gray, a lighter one, because whatever that is not mapped with the PNG and the darker gray, it was white. If I'm changing the color of white to a lighter gray, it's changed to a lighter gray color. You can see that if I'm changing this, for example, red, then of course the default material, including the cube that is underneath the stationery, they will turn red color. In this case, I'm going to create just red on the top of the calculator just to have fun. And then what I can do here is to also change the base. I want to select the base of the calculator and use the very same dark gray color. So how can I do that? I'm going to not use the render preview because it's going to mislead my vision here, and we will change it back to the material preview. So when I'm changing it back to the material preview, I'm selecting one of the buttons here. Go to select similar material. That means that the computer will automatically select what is using the same material as this button I have selected. In this case, once I click that, all these buttons will be highlighted, and I can hit the H button on the keyboard just to hide it. And I can do the same by using the darker gray shade. Select similar material, I'm selecting the rest. Hit H. I can select everything and delete it to hide them with H. I can retrieve them with Option H or Alt H on the keyboard, depending whether you are using a PC or a Mac, and H again to hide it. Okay, now what I need to do is to keep this red, right? You can say it is pretty straightforward that I'm going to look at this from the side, or Control 3 just to not have myself distracted by the eraser, and going to X-ray to see all the faces. And what I can do is to select the faces that are above. For horizontal area, I can basically select everything at once. Here on the side, I will have to invest a bit more time just to be careful to select whatever that's it's tilted here. And then I can go back to the solid non-X-rayed preview and just select the missing faces, which is here. Now, basically, I have selected everything on top, and I want them, missing one face, I want them to be red in color, so they are red in color. But I can reverse the selection by using select, and then I can invert the selection by selecting the rest of the mesh. Oh, I missed also this loop. I will just deselect this. And once I have this selected, I can go to the darker gray material and assign. When I assign them, you see the base of the calculator is turned darker gray and the top will keep to be red. And now I have this calculator. If we take a look at the image here, I don't have the solar panel on top, I don't have the screen on top. Anyway, you can just create, for example, this screen, I suppose it's also gray in color, but it's slightly shinier. So what I can do is to select the faces here, all the faces, and to create another material, I can use the darker gray as the base, but I have to copy it. This is to copy, make a new material based on what I have here. Once I click this, originally it is the second material and now it becomes the third, and I can assign this material, reduce the roughness a little bit, it will turn more shiny. And if you see, I'm going to the render preview And if I select this, and for example, if I assign the second material, look at the reflection here, it will be dimmer because it is less reflective. But if I'm assigning the third material here, it will be shinier. I can mimic the look of a screen here by doing so. And then what you can do on the solar panel area is either you map a solar panel like normal calculator has, or you can just use the very same material, a shiny black color. Or you can also create another material using the third color. Of course, I recommend you to give it a name, but now I have a very simple project, so I don't have to give any name. I can copy or clone this material into the fourth one and change the color a little bit. Usually it's a bit orangey, so I'm going to change it to something like a brownish, shiny color. I have not done the assigning. I select again these faces, assign it. And now if I go back to the object mode, you will see the calculator being mapped as I desire. But I want it to stand out, so I'm going to give another material, a white material, to the cube. I have a white cube. This is not white. This material is actually the rubber. I'm going to create a blank material. This is white. Now I have a white cube and then almost retro Japanese style calculator and a radar eraser. This is how I will do the mapping. I struggle a little bit. Sometimes I make mistake, and I also tell my students many times, we all make mistakes, and from mistakes we learn how to work faster and how to work smarter. And I hope you can follow along my tutorial, or if you have learned a new way or your own way, great, congratulations. You are now getting more and more independent. Next time we will come back to learn a new tool or a new modifier. Stay tuned to learn more. So see you next time. Bye!